Hi everyone, welcome to 10th EIWO Policy Webinar. My name is Gülün Öylü and I'm a researcher in Aging and Social Change Division in Linköping University. I'm also one of the researchers of EIWO program, and this EIWO policy program is policy and research program is on exclusion and inequality in late working life, and it aims to provide policy evidence for sustainable and better working conditions and inclusive and extended working life. So within this program, we use the platform of webinar to disseminate our research results, also connect with policy experts in this area and also participants like you. And so I would like to thank all of you just joining in. And before we start the webinar, I would like to note something about the webinar setting. This webinar in the Zoom is recorded. You most probably see in your Zoom screens. So this recording of the webinar will be shared publicly online in our website, and you can reach from our website, from YouTube, and we will send around the recording to all participants that are registered. So just please note that while participating in the webinar. And also I write here in the slide our website of our project. So in this website, you can see our researchers and for countries, Poland, UK, Sweden, and Germany, and also our policy advisory committee, who's our experts in the area. And you can also reach our publications, previous webinar recordings, and all the informations. So today within this EIWO program, very important topic we are going to talk. And this is lifelong learning, participation, perception, pathways, and outcomes. So regarding this topic, we have two great presentations and presenters. So here we see two presenters and presentation topics. First, Annika, who is also one of the EIWO researchers, will present on perception and participation in lifelong learning in Europe. And this presentation is based on her recent publication with Luis and Andreas. And she also has a policy brief that will distribute the policy brief right after the webinar with recording. And after Annika, Sarah Loriato from Age Platform Europe will present on age-related inequalities and risks exclusions for older adults regarding adult education and lifelong learning. And unfortunately today we have a minor change of plans regarding our third presenter because Hugo informed us he's not able to present because he's unwell. So we will have two presentations instead of three. But I think this will provide us the opportunity to discuss these two presentations and the topic of lifelong learning more. And I really hope and encourage you to participate, discussion, sharing your comments and questions. So this is also important for us to improve and develop our research and the topic. So before I talk too much, I would like to start the presentations, and Annika, you can start, and floor is yours.
So I think you can see now the presentation in the presenters view.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, thank you very much, Gülün, for the introduction. So my name is Annika Heuer, and I'm a PhD researcher at Linköping University, the Division of Aging and Social Change, and within the EIWO program also. And together with Luis Serrato-Sotelo, who's also here today, and Andreas Mutter-Kringelby, we have just recently published an article, as Gülün just mentioned, about how perception affects participation, the case of adult learning and continued vocational education and training in Europe. So this article is an analysis for 32 different European countries based on the second opinion survey by CEDEFOP. So in the following minutes, I'm going to share more about our analysis and our results. So the background for this analysis is that European populations are aging, and that is why the expected labor force shortage and also the sustainability of pension systems are widely discussed in Europe. the EU member states have also declared it a common goal to extend working lives equally and inclusively. But to extend working lives, it's key to also focus on skills, as older workers need to be able to update their skills or acquire new skills. So in order to extend working lives equally and inclusively, also the equal access to learning and training activities should be safeguarded. And this is why we were interested at looking into participation in adult learning. But why did we want to look at perceptions or the relationship between perception and participation? We found that the relationship between socioeconomic factors and participation in adult learning have already been very well researched and also detected in previous research. However, socioeconomic factors are rather fixed and cannot be so easily influenced, of course. So it's hard to, for example, say that you could change a specific socioeconomic factor to thereby affect or increase participation. And that is why we thought it was interesting to look at perceptions, because perceptions could be changed, for example, by awareness campaigns or image management campaigns. And also the perceptions in relation with participation in adult learning are also less researched until now. So in specific, we want to look at the perceived importance of adult learning and continued vocational education and training. And in the following, I abbreviated with CVET because it's such a long phrase. Yeah, coming to the aim of our study, we wanted to investigate the relationship between the perceived importance of adult learning and continued vocational education and training and the actual participation in them. And specifically to look into how the perceived importance of adult learning and continued vocational education and training relates to participation in 4 different kinds of adult learning and CVT activities in Europe in the previous 12 months. Yes, and before I come to the data material, I just wanted to say a little bit about adult learning and continued vocational education and training. We define it in accordance with CEDEFOP's definition as any learning activities undertaken by adults, whether employed or not, with the intention of improving knowledge or skills. So yeah, it's a rather broad definition. And also in the data material that we used as a basis in our analysis, participation in adult learning and continued vocational education and training refers only to the activities after entering the labor market. So it does not include the formal education before entering the labor market. Yes, and the data, we have used CEDEFOP's second opinion survey for our analysis, which investigated people's perception about adult learning and continued vocational education and training. And this data consists of 40,466 telephone interviews with adults aged 25 and over living in the EU and also in Iceland and Norway. So in total, this were 32 different countries. And the interviews were conducted in the summer of 2019. So it's a cross-sectional data material. And among other information and indicators, the dataset includes, for example, the information about the perceived importance of adult learning and continued vocational education and training, also information about participation in different kinds of adult learning and CVET, and socio-demographic and socio-economic indicators. But yeah, this is just to name a few that were more relevant to our study, but the second opinion survey has covered even more aspects about perceptions and participations in adult learning. Coming to the variables, in our analysis, we used as a dependent variable the participation in 4 different kinds of adult learning and continued vocational education and training activities within the previous 12 months. So it's always referring to the 12 months before the time point of the interview. And it's a yes or no, whether they participated within the last 12 months or not. And in the data is distinguished between 4 different kinds of adult learning and continued vocational education and training activities, which we also have as separate outcome variables. So it's on the one hand formal learning. This means leading to a degree recognized by the state, like for example, university education. The other type of adult learning and CVT activity is non-formal work-related learning. This means it's an organized activity which is related to work, but not leading to a degree. So it could be, for example, a course that someone is taking at work or workshop or seminar. Then the third activity that is distinguished is the non-formal, not work-related activity. This means it's an organized activity which is not related to work. So, for example, a workshop, seminar, or course that is taken outside of work, as long as it does not lead to a recognized degree. And then the fourth type of activity is informal learning, which is defined as learning on your own in order to update or acquire new knowledge and skills. And this is a bit broader and could even also mean going to a museum or reading a book. Our main independent variable that we have included in our analysis is the perceived importance of adult learning and continued vocational education and training. And on the next slide, I'm going to share a bit more about what this entails. I didn't have space in the slide here. And then also we include some control variables that are known from previous research to impact participation. So we had to control for them, of course. So we controlled for age, education, occupational categories, gender, and also country of residence. Yes, so coming back just shortly to our main independent variable, the perceived importance of adult learning and continued vocational education and training. This summarizes the following items. So just to give you some overview about what we mean with perceived importance. So it summarizes the items: adult learning and continuing training are as important as the education you receive at school or university. Our way to obtain the equivalent of a traditional college or university degree are important when looking for a new job, are important to progress in a career, to have a better income, for personal development, and to reduce unemployment. And about the methodology, we wanted to model the probability of participation in adult learning and continued vocational education and training within the previous 12 months. And to do so for each of the 4 different types of adult learning and CVT activities, we ran both a logistic regression and also linear probability model via OLS regression. And we had to keep in mind that we're dealing with cross-sectional data, so we could not say anything about cause or effect, but we could have a look at relationships. Yeah, this brings me to the results. On this slides, I have summarized the results when it comes to the relationships between perceived importance and participation. And here we found that the perceived importance has a highly significant positive relationship with participation. And we found this to be the case in all of the 4 different types of learning activities that we had a look at. And this was true as a total effect, but also as a net effect. So even when we added the control variables into the model that were found in previous studies to affect participation, this effect was still consistent. And this led us to our main takeaway from this, that if adult learning and continued vocational education and training are perceived as important, then also the likelihood to participate in those activities increases. And in the next slides, I'm going to show the results when it comes to the control variables also that we included into the model. We found that increases in age category are negatively associated with participation in all of the 4 different kinds of learning, which also could be expected from the previous literature. And increases in education levels were positively associated with participation in all kinds of learning. And we also found, difference by gender, where we saw that women had an increased likelihood to participate compared to men in formal, non-formal, not work-related, and informal learning. And this gender difference was not so clear for the work-related non-formal learning, because it was only significant in one of the two models that we conducted. And then the last slide about the results. This is regarding the relationship between occupational categories and participation. We found that white-collar employees are more likely to participate in all of the 4 different kinds of adult learning and continued vocational education and training categories compared to the blue-collar employees. And also self-employed professionals had a higher likelihood to participate in non-formal work-related, non-formal not work-related, and informal learning activities compared to the reference group, which was blue-collar employees. And finally, also not being in paid employment was associated with a decreased likelihood to participate in formal, non-formal work-related, and informal learning activities compared to our reference group, the blue-collar employees. This was the results from our study. So to come to a conclusion about this, we found that perception has a positive relationship with participation in all kinds of learning, even when controlling for known impact factors such as age, gender, education, and so on. So this means that if adult learning and continued vocational education and training are perceived as important, then also the likelihood to participate in those activities increases. And to think one step further, this could mean that image management or awareness campaigns, for example, could emphasize various benefits of adult learning and continued vocational education and training. And if the benefits are emphasized, of course, this could improve perceptions that people have about adult learning and CVT. So if perceptions are improved in turn, it should also contribute to increased participation rates. So this could be an interesting tool for the future. And also from an inequality perspective, these campaigns could be targeted at groups that are known to engage less in adult learning and continued vocational education and training, because there's already research on who participates more or less. And if those who are usually known to engage less are targeted, it could also contribute to mitigating inequalities in participation, hopefully. This was the conclusions from our recently published article. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Annika, for this great presentation. As you said, it shows that it's really important to provide more awareness for the benefits of lifelong learning. And this, we see somehow more benefits related to labor market. So if we have all other benefits, maybe we will see more effects in the other demographic groups. But I'm really curious from our participants if you have questions and comments, and you can also write in the chat or directly raise your hands. And I already see Anne-Sophie's hand.
Yes, thanks a lot, Annika. That was very interesting. I have actually questions rather than comments. First of all, to thank you for your presentation. That was very clear. But just to get a better understanding, for example, of the age group, the people who were interviewed. You mentioned that the interviewed was meant for people age 25 plus, but you didn't say until when we are dealing with older workers. That's for me an element that is very important, because we know that in some countries or among some employers or among some trade unions also, they put actually an upper limit to the vocational training or other activities. And this upper limit is actually working against the aim of this project. So I thought it could be interesting to know. I tried to look very quickly on the on the website for searching for the report on which you based yourself, but then I prefer to focus on the presentation, so I stopped there. Then my second question is if you have been able to question the interviewee about their perception of the role of trade unions in facilitating or making it not so obvious to access training and vocational training at a later age, because we know that it's not always foreseen for them. And then the last question is actually concerning your conclusions at the end, because you say that the perception is really a key element to facilitate to support participation. But for me, it wasn't clear whether you meant perception among the older workers themselves, both women and men, or perception of the added value of training and vocational education among the employers. Yeah, because that's something, another question, the role of employers there. I didn't hear anything about it. Or how could they promote it? Yeah,
that's a really good question. Thank you very much for all of your questions. It's really interesting. I will start from behind. The perceptions were asked to the interviewees. So this study was conducted by CEDEFOP as the second opinion survey, and they have interviewed the general population age 25 and up about their participation in those 4 different kind of adult learning and continued vocational education and training activities, and their perceptions and participation in it. They did not interview employers, but they agree it would be extremely interesting, of course, because especially when it comes to work-related training, vocational educations would be extremely important to also see employers' perceptions about it, and whether they give the opportunities to participate to which employees. So I think this would be, it was not included, but it would be very interesting to have a look at. The perception about the role of trade unions to access adult learning and training opportunities was also not part of the study. But I think, it would also be extremely interesting to have a look at. So maybe there could be a follow-up study to make it a bit broader and pay attention to this as well. Regarding the age limit, there was no age limit to the interview, so it started from 25. Then we have conducted age categories to just see if there are any age effects when we analyzed. And then our last category was 75 plus. So it was really, I think, it was randomly recruited to this interview. So there was no specific age limit to it.
Okay, that's good news.
Yeah.
because many projects stop even much earlier than that, like 50, 55.
Yeah. Maybe
so
it was because
disappointed.
No, I think it's good. But maybe it was because this is not specifically only for work-related education training, but also other types of, for example, informal learning. So maybe that's why it was so open. But it's good in any case.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Anne-Sophie, for great questions. I was also thinking about the employers level while listening, because that's very important for support for lifelong learning also. Yeah, but I see another question from Martin. And yes.
Thank you very much for your interesting presentation. I think inequalities are obviously a huge issue, age inequalities based on education and other factors. So I was thinking, do you think that this improved perception campaign, for instance, could lead to lowering these inequalities? because I would be afraid that if we raise awareness or do awareness campaigns,
Mhm.
this could be again more perceived by higher educated or higher skilled workers and maybe increase the inequalities even more. So this is my more substantial question. And then just a small question regarding the data. Really interesting data source. I haven't heard of it before. Do you know if there's planned any wave of a similar data collection? So that's basically my two questions. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you very much for your questions. I'm not sure if CEDEFOP has planned for a similar one, but this was already the second opinion survey, so I can imagine that they will continue with it. But yeah, maybe there's something I could check on the CEDEFOP website, but I haven't heard about it yet. But I would expect that they probably want to continue with it. And yeah, the other question is, of course, a very good question, because we also saw that those with higher education were more likely to participate in all kinds of learning compared to the lower educated groups. So I think it might also be that those campaigns could be more, yeah, get more attention from higher educated groups, and therefore, yeah, potentially lead to even more inequality. So I think it should really be then targeted at, for example, blue collar employees, or yeah, at workplaces where a lot of lower skilled workers work, to make it right. I think that would be really important to really see how to target the populations who are usually participating less, so that yeah, those campaigns would get their attention, and not only those who anyways usually participate.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you too.
Thank you for this great question, because I agree, even if we increase awareness, then yeah, individuals have different level of access to lifelong learning. So yeah, inequalities can remain. Yeah, I agree. But we have a question from Melanie also, or hand at least. Yes.
Yes, please. So Annika, thank you for your presentation. I'm from Germany and from the LEADER cohort study on older employees. And we did some questions on further educations among older employees. So we are not specialized in this, but I've got some ideas and some questions. We saw as well that the lower educated persons have a lower participation. But when we asked who would have liked to get something in the last year, they as well had a higher part of people that didn't get an offer to get further education. And some of them were very frustrated and said, there is no time to do this, there is no offer from my employer. And so I think it's a complex situation. And your approach to say we have to raise awareness, we have to raise the importance, and then they will go and have training is very straightforward. But I think that the lower importance, or you called it perception, the lower perception that it is important is maybe a reflection of, okay, I see it's complex, but maybe you got the idea.
Yeah, I got the idea, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a really important point. So it's so much more behind than, I mean, even if you have a good perception about it, in general, maybe, I mean, we saw this effect of participation and perception, but there's so much more behind it. So some groups will definitely have more opportunities to participate, more barriers. So this would be, yeah, really important to keep in mind. And that's maybe to look into and further research also what moderates or what is behind that people maybe don't participate, even if their perception about it is high, or they value it highly. Yeah, so thank you very much. I think it's a very important point to highlight.
Yeah, thank you for the question. And maybe we can move on to Sarah's presentation, and she's from Age Platform Europe, and she's going to focus on age-related inequalities more. So maybe we can move more inequalities dimension, and at the end we can merge these two discussions, because now we are also moving forward to inequalities with Annika's presentation. So then we can have the rest of the questions together at the end. Yes, Sarah's presentation. I will share the screen in a second.
Thanks a lot, Gulin. And
Yes.
thanks a lot for having me today in this interesting exchange. You can already go to the next slide. And very quickly, I'm gonna just introduce Age Platform Europe and myself. So Age Platform Europe is the largest European network representing older persons in Europe. We have around 100 members that themselves represent older persons at national level. And our work is really to echo their voices and to do some advocacy work with the EU institution to make sure that the interests of older persons are not forgotten. And I am mainly working on two portfolios, which are employment and participation, and that includes lifelong learning, of course. You can go to the next slide. So yeah, in my presentation, I wanted to give you an overview of how lifelong learning is understood by the EU institutions and what is exactly our work with them and what is our position, our recommendations. And so yeah, I wanted to start with those numbers that are coming from Eurostat, which is the statistical office of the European Union, and where we see that we have numbers around 47% for 25-64 years old when it comes to participation into lifelong learning. We have around 35% for 55 to 64 years old, but no data are available beyond 65 years old. I had a deeper look this morning, and I saw that some data goes up to 69. And sometimes you can have, under certain conditions, numbers from 65 plus, meaning that we believe that there is no disaggregated data when it comes to 65 plus people. So this is one point to highlight. But yeah, we have usually, or when it comes to participation in lifelong learning, we do not have data outside of the labor markets. So in 2016, Eurostat and the Commission tried to identify through a survey the main barriers to adult learning. So under 65, usually it's the cost of courses, the loss of income due to taking time off at work and to train, the lack of awareness of training opportunities, and the uncertainty over whether the employer will recognize the training achievement. There is also one of the barrier mentioned is time constraint. And so this survey gave us an idea of the main obstacle only for adults of working age, the fact that there is few or no statistic for people over the what they call the working age is worrying. This shows that the EU has more like a career-long approach rather than a lifelong approach, at least when it comes to learning and education. And this goes against the right to education, regardless of the age, actually, because it excludes pensioners. And actually, it even goes against the discourse that we hear the most, actually, in the last few years, which is in favor of working longer, sustainability of the working life. Well, we believe that if we do not have training opportunities, it is one of the reasons why people won't continue working, won't remain on the labor market, or won't come back on the labor market as pensioners and find a combined solution. If you do not have opportunities to upskill, to change career, to adapt to a changing environment, it is kind of illusionary to think that older people would come back on the labor markets. This is not the only reason, of course, but it is certainly one of them. You can already go to the next slide. And actually, yeah, no, okay. I can talk a little bit about this, even if I said a bit already. So we've tried to highlight some of the challenges to adult education. And of course, there is this question of accessibility. If training is only online, it excludes people who do not have the basic skills or do not or cannot afford actually new technologies to follow the trainings. There is also the question of transportation to be developed to ensure that people in rural areas or with a disability to access the training site would have some solution, also some options. There is the question of affordability. I said some things about it. Age discrimination, of course. We see often that employers might more easily invest in trainings when it comes to the youngest than older employees. It goes to the question of age limits. So in some at national level, there are some trainings that are not available for people who are not of working age, because there is this discourse or narrative around the productivity and the labor markets that take precedence over the right of education. And yeah, actually, even if we look at the question from the productivity angle, we know that older persons play a significant role when it comes to informal care or to volunteering. And so they have training needs to know how to care about someone, or I don't know, learning a language to be able to volunteer in some situation, or I don't know, training driving lessons, for instance, to be able to go from a place to another. So even in terms of productivity, there is an importance to ensure that people, even outside of the labor market, continue learning. And lack of flexibility for all the workers, mainly who, as I said earlier, face time constraints and the loss of income due to taking time off work to train. You can go to the next slide. Yeah, very quickly, some of the EU policies that goes into that focus on training and education, and that might play that might be a good card to play when it comes to adult education. So there is the Charter of Fundamental Rights and the European Pillar of Social Rights that recognize a right to education. Here we have a target, an EU target of 60% of adults taking part in training every year by 2030. There is of course, the Framework Directive on Equal Treatment, which actually prohibits age discrimination even when it comes to training, but we know that it allows some derogations, and so some age limits are allowed in member states. There is also Erasmus programs, which are quite good because they provide for a mobility policy for adult learners with access to possible fundings for mobility projects. It's actually one of the one of the programs that is always used as a response from the European Commission to say we're doing a lot for adult learning. But here at Age, we believe that, of course, the program is interesting. It's aimed at adults with fewer opportunities or the most affected by the digital transition. But these projects, are not systematic initiatives guaranteeing a lifelong learning education for all. So yeah. And then, of course, there is the Council recommendation on individual learning accounts that has been adopted in May 2022, but I will come back to this later. Yeah, I forgot to mention the European Year of Skills. Everything is available online, but it was mainly an initiative from the European Union to focus mainly on digital and green transition to help people to acquire the right skills for quality job. So there is again this willingness of having more skilled people on the labor market, but putting aside people over working age. Yeah, and so this European Year of Skills began in May 2023 and lasted 12 months. Yeah, next slide. So regarding this policy framework, I might have missed some initiatives, but those I mentioned are the main ones. You have we've identified some issues. So as I said, they only focus on skills relevant to the labor market. The benefits of learning for older person is actually invisible due to ageism, and I won't come back on what I said on volunteering and caring that cannot be done properly without training. There is basically the need for to remind the EU policy of the right to education, whatever the age. Yeah, adult education is non-formal, it is non-systemic, and it often developed at local level, actually, and it is not seen as a priority. So there is under-investment or the lack of implementation of the strategies that already exist. And yeah, we see a lot of age limits in national adult education program. Next slide, please. I would invite you to have a look on the age policy, the policy statement we released in May 2022 at Age Platform Europe. So it was linked to a Commission proposal for the implementation of individual learning accounts. Now it has been adopted, and it is now a Council recommendation. Our recommendation have been at, well, depending on what, some recommendations have been listened and included in the recommendation, but not everything. So the paper is very accurate, is still very accurate, actually. Yeah, in this following this paper, and following the Council recommendation, the Commission has organized such as kind of workshops between I think it's 6 to 8 member states to see how to implement those individual learning accounts in member states. You can already go to the next slide. Yeah, and I will go quickly because I think I'm ahead of time, but please, Galin, tell me if I am. Quickly go through the recommendations that are part of the paper, but also still accurate for lifelong learning in general.
Feel free to take your
Okay.
time, Sarah, because we have more time in this webinar. Yes.
Okay, great. So yeah, in our paper we recognize the potential of the Commission proposal and now the Council recommendation, because it is really ensuring that education and training are better accessible to all workers, and it provides systematic learning rights for older workers. So basically, it would be for anyone, any European, to have an access to trainings in general, and they can manage their own learning account by themselves. So right now, as I said, we do follow its implementation. The main issues that they encounter is regarding how to finance this kind of initiatives. As an example, to let you know, in France, they already have something similar implemented, which is called compte professionnel, I think. And so it was entirely free for anyone within the labor market, of course, because they always have this age limit. But they had to come back on what was tried for the past year, I think, because there is a lack of funds to develop the initiative. And so what was a real progress, because available for anyone, is now they're now doing kind of a step back, because people have to pay for a ticket. Let's say they have a minimum amount to pay, meaning that the ones with less time, less resources, less financial resources, let's say, won't be able to continue using it. But it had really positive results. Our members highlighted the fact that, for instance, for getting basic digital skills, it helped a lot. Also, when it comes to just getting the driving license, which helped a lot when it comes to getting another changing career, or getting, when you're an older job seeker, getting a new employment. Yeah, so very positive results. The question is how to finance. Yeah, another another point that we highlighted regarding this individual learning account is the fact that it could really help to do the transition from work to retirement, and introduce the possibility of changing job when you go to retirement age, or possibilities for self-entrepreneurship or volunteering activities. Yeah, I already said that's part of the paper, but it is in our recommendations in general. We try to, of course, remind over and over the right to education, but also take the angle of sustainability of working life, because this is the discourse that the European Commission has: working longer if you can. And so we insist on the fact that sustainability of working life is not possible without the quality of the working life, and quality goes with learning opportunities. And finally, I will insist on the need to embrace the diversity of the population. So we need guided and offline access. We need reasonable accommodation and transport services. I told you about a bit earlier. We need credible quality criteria, facilitation for informal caregivers to make sure that they have some flexibility and be able to learn while working. And yeah, paid educational leave. And you can go to the last slide, I think. Thanks a lot. Yeah, I wanted to give you a short overview of what the new, actually, European Commission is planned to do when it comes to lifelong learning. So you can have a deeper look maybe on the hearing that is recorded on the website of the European Commission, but also on the writing answers of the new, actually, Executive Vice President Roxana Mitsatsu, who's going to work on people, skills, and preparedness. Both in her oral and writing answers, she talked about the recognition of qualification and skills mobility. So I think she's going to focus on those two aspects. also, of course, on labor and skills shortages and on the digital education action plan. So yeah, the Commission is still focusing a lot on people of working age, but one opportunity that I see in what she announced is the fact that she wants to have an intersectional approach, including gender and age. She mentioned age, so that is an opportunity to grasp. And yeah, there is more and more, and still again, this discourse around the sustainability of working life with the demographic transition. So we need to surf on this and to remind all over again the right to education. And I think I'm going to stop here. Yeah, that's it. Thanks a lot, and I remain available if you have any question.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I stop sharing. Yes. Thank you so much for a great presentation. It's really complements also what we had in the first presentation, that importance of awareness, and now we see the other factors. And also, I really like the idea. We always talk about labor market productivity, but there are other benefits of lifelong learning. So it was also really great to underline. And now, yeah, we can open for questions and comments. And Anne-Sophie, yeah, you are the first one, so we can listen to your question.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Sarah. That was very interesting and good to see everything that EDGE is doing. It's crucial. It has been a battle ever since EDGE was launched. So we have to keep pushing for better attention for all the persons in general, not only workers. But you were referring to the French individual learning accounts, which were launched and were actually quite a big budget was attached to it. It was organized in such a way that the employee themselves had nothing to contribute, but they had an account, a virtual account somewhere, and they could buy courses. So education, most of them online, but not necessarily all the time. But I remember that this was in principle very good and was meant to be inclusive of all, but it quickly ran into some kind of hacking in a way that there were false educational offers which were made because the system was a bit too easy. The person who wanted education only had to register, so they saw an offer, they liked it, they said yes, and please use my credit, educational credit, but actually there was nothing behind. It was just a spam. I don't have any clue if they have managed to get rid of this problem, because it was actually preventing, in particular, those with low income who had trouble. It may have contributed to increased or potentially large increase of costs for the public purse, which led to reducing and asking for co-funding share of the beneficiary. But I was just wondering, with the difficulties where France stands for the moment in terms of public budget, is it not going again to be one area where they will cut first before they cut anything else? Do you hear something from your French members or so? Because France is not the only country which is being scrutinized and put under a lot of pressure by the European Commission to stay within their budget. They don't have one yet, but even that is causing trouble. But there are other countries as well. We are living in front of us. We have big turbulences coming up, not only with the war but also economically. Since 5th of November, lots of things have changed. So just to have an idea if this is something that actually we might need as activists to think about, so that we try and come up with stronger arguments advocating for the need to maintain such services for the general benefits, the general interest of the population, because this has always been presented in a way as something to help older workers with low skills remain in employment because they would cost less to society. Those with high income and high education actually had access to it, and it was even offered by their employer without any question, even if they were not thinking about it themselves. When those who would benefit most actually had the most difficulties to access it and being paid or accepted by their employers, just having some time off from a certain job, in particular blue-collar jobs, it's just difficult. So it's just, trying, there is nothing published yet on that, so nothing to study from collected evidence, but it's just trying to see where we stand today and whether building recommendations on evidence that belong to a past, which is very recent, but is already really very much the past. The situation is to change. Just to have an idea, if you have such discussions with your members, or if you continue to do, because it's very difficult to draw policy recommendations on nothing but ideas about where we stand, because this where we stand, even within a single day, keeps changing for the moment. So it's it's just to see what we can do, because activists have a role to have some kind of a foresight and raise issues even before they are documented by research. Thank you.
It's actually a very really interesting question that I would convey to the French members, because I'm not sure they have this aspect also in mind. What I can say from an EU point of view is that only last month the Commission published on its website about the workshops that they are doing with member states to make sure that individual learning accounts are implemented in their countries. Just a reminder on the fact that it is a recommendation from the Council, so it is not mandatory. So I believe that if France is part of the process, and from the few feedback I received from those workshops, there is a willingness from France, at least, and from the other countries that are involved. I think it's 6 to 8 countries, to discuss how to implement better this initiative and to continue on this. When we worked on the paper on 2022, we really had the feeling that France was quite proud of majoring in this area and being taken as an example. So I hope that they won't cut this very good initiative that needs to be improved, of course, but it is a very good starting point. Also, with the new commission that just has been appointed yesterday, actually approved yesterday, we will raise this issue to the new executive vice president to make sure that there is a monitoring on the implementation of the recommendation, and so the individual learning account, but not only lifelong learning in general.
Actually, you could use the fact that the title of a portfolio has been changed, so it's clearer now, and it's obvious that it fits in our duties. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Anne-Sophie, also your response, Sarah, because I was thinking when I'm listening also, who pays the burden or who pays the lifelong learning costs? Is it employers, governments? And regarding that, it's, of course, we need government policies, and it depends on the, in changing. government economic resources. So I was really curious about that also. But is there any comments or questions regarding Sarah's presentation?
Maybe just to add, when it's governments, it means it's taxpayers.
Yeah.
And this is really the key issue for the moment, not only in education, but on access to healthcare, on access to affordable housing, whatever. We live at a moment where lots of issues we consider to be rights, because I've heard at least 10 times the right to education. This is under threat. It's a right to education for children up to a certain age, then for young adults to get trained, and then it's over. There is no right anymore. You have the right to educate yourself, but the cost is no longer covered by the taxpayers or the public purse. And that's where we fit, actually. It's something which has been for some initiatives like the French one, but UK had a fantastic adult education program before. They had third age universities and all that. All this was founded and was considered to be a right, but this is forgotten. It's not part of the basic human rights to education, which concerns children and young adults, and then people who may need to be redirected. For example, if you have a disability or you acquire a disability, you may need to build new skills or these kind of things. So then it's something you have to either convince your employer or the trade unions or the local policymakers that it is worth investing in those groups of people. And that's becoming more and more challenging.
Wow. Thank you, Anne-Sophie, for underlining this right for education. Also, it connects to ageism again. It's important to combat ageism, also to underline right for education. But thank you so much. But we have one more question or comment from Martin.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to ask if you're aware of the concept Aging 4.0, promoted, for instance, by Kai Leichsenring, because I think if I take your recommendations from the presentations, there are some overlapping thoughts. So I want to ask if you're aware of this Aging 4.0 and if your approach to the topics somewhat differs from this concept, or if you fully agree with that, like lifelong learning and this paid education leave, paid care leave, and other parts of it.
Hi, Martin. Thank you for your question, but I have to say that I'm not familiar with the research. I would have to have a look on it. Can you hear me?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, okay. Yeah, if you're interested, I can send you
Totally.
the paper.
Maybe
Very
we
interesting
can
one.
even share with everyone also in the chat if it's okay with you.
Yeah,
it would be really
great.
interesting for also participants, most probably. Yeah.
I definitely can. It's mostly created by Kai Leichsenring, who is from European Center for Social Welfare Policy and Research. And I spoke to him yesterday. He was visiting Czech Republic, so it was very fascinating to see him like on site. So yeah, I can share it in chat. Just give me a second.
Well, thank you so much for making us aware of this report also. Right. In the meantime, while Martin is sharing in the chat, is there any other comments or questions from the participants?
Just a question, actually, if I may. Often you will see programs which seek to build digital skills among a certain group of older workers for the very good reason that the more we wait, the bigger the gap will be. And it does not only concern older persons, but you have about, depending on the countries, up to about 40-45% of the adult population who are unable to function in today's highly digital society. So this is something that is being done because it's more or less understood that we cannot leave people too much behind, and that effort should be made to make sure that they are not becoming a heavier burden because they would not be able to function the way that public authorities are developing their policies or providing their services, even and the general industry in particular. But for other types, non-digital skills, I have the slight feeling that this is really now lost somewhere, and nobody understands that it's not enough for someone to be a computer freak to be able to function and provide some input to the community. You need more than that. So I don't know if that's also something that you have heard being explored somewhere, because it's not new. It's actually the last, I would say the last 10, but in particular the last 5 years, that so many services have moved online, including public services, just for mobility issues. If you are not digital, it's a real nightmare now to be able to book or buy a train ticket or a local tram ticket or whatever. It's becoming really very difficult, and all this adds to the challenges that some groups face, or the persons, in particular those who cannot afford to be kept informed and have the latest phone or the latest computer to be able to feel comfortable enough using those digital tools, but also people who just are not able to continue to follow the way society is changing. And
So I believe there is two approaches here. I would say on one side, advocating to make sure that there is an offline offer, to make sure that even not only for older people who do not have the basic skills, we need to take into account the ones who cannot afford new technologies, but also the ones who do not want to use technology. This is also a right. And the other approach, and that goes together, not one against the other, is the fact that acquiring, having basic digital skills, it's changing every day. I'm a bit exaggerating, but new technologies are moving so fast that even what I learned 10 years ago is not accurate today. So this is a training actually that we should be able to follow on a regular basis, to make sure that we can, if we want to adapt to this digitally changing environment, and make sure that if we want to use them, we are adapted to the new technologies and the new tools that are in front of us. The question is really to the freedom of choice, being able to choose whatever option is best and wanted.
Thank you, Sarah and Anne-Sophie. When I hear also non-digital options, I also think about what you said about this skills for non-informal care, driving, and non-productive skills not related to maybe just adapting to changing technologies, but also just changing life also. So I think that teach me the importance of also other dimensions of lifelong learning. But thank you so much. And I think we are almost coming to the end of the webinar time. If there's no comments or questions, final remarks. Thank you so much for the maybe Anne-Sophie, did you?
I just wanted at the end to thank you all very much.
Thank you also for great comments and questions. Yes. And also thank you so much for Annika and Sarah for great presentations. And I learned a lot from awareness, the role of perceptions, and also other factors and recommendations, what can be done for lifelong learning. And it was really great presentations and great discussions for questions. It was really good discussions. I'm not the expert in lifelong learning, but it was really good to see your comments and questions. And as I said before, we will distribute the recording of the webinar to participants also online. And we will send around also upcoming webinars next semester. You can register and you can follow. And yes, and there was a question in the chat if we distribute the presentations. It depends. I will talk with Annika and Sarah if they are okay. We can also share their reports, policy briefs, and the links for them, and also their slides, and you will see them in the email if that's okay. Yeah, once again, it's so great to see all of you and comments and the presentations. Yeah, thank you. Have a nice day for the rest of the day.
And Merry Christmas if we don't see you, and Happy New Year if we don't see you before the New Year.
Yeah.
We are almost December now.
Yes, time is passing quickly. Yeah, Merry Christmas for everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gülin.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
And
Bye.
well done.
Bye.